part 2 of the lesson for direct instruction on March 15th, March 18th, and March 19th, starting today, Friday, through next Tuesday. If you are in the center and were absent for class, you need to watch both this screencast and the one about the introduction of pronouns. And again, both documents are there for you. What we're going to be working on is using some strategies for revising. So I collected on Wednesday blogs 7 and 8 that students are working on in social studies. So if you are absent and don't have these blogs, you obviously are on a computer right now and can reprint them for yourselves and do this activity as we go. So the first thing, we've done this strategy before, is looking for varied sentences. And so you just need to go through your sentences and just start writing down the first 5 words of each sentence. So after we have chosen A. And then you would go through and count how many words are in this sentence. 15. And then you go to the next sentence. And you keep doing this until you have filled up this entire chart. There are only a few. We must understand that our. There are several different ways. Some teams have many different. Okay, and so as you go through this, let's say this one had 6. This one had, 9. And this one had 11. And this one had 32. Then we would go through and look at is there any special type of sentence. So I can tell for this one, this is an intro-dependent clause. And if you need your notes from your binder, you can get this out in varied sentences. It should be in your grammar bit section. This one was compound, and I know it was compound because it had a semicolon in it. This one had a comma in it because it had an intro-dependent clause. And so after you've gone through the first part of your writing, you should start to see some patterns. So in looking at the patterns I'm seeing here, at the start we've got some really not very long descriptive sentences, especially this 6 and this 9. This tells me I should probably go back and add some more description to those sentences. I also notice that I have a couple of sentences starting exactly the same way, and I want to probably go back and see if there's a different way that I could start one of them. Then I see this sentence with 32, and that probably indicates to me that I have too many words in that sentence. It might be a run-on. Not necessarily. It could be just a very good descriptive compound sentence with a bunch of dependent clauses in it, which is great, but it is something to think about because there would probably need to be some very special punctuation in there, and so it's something to look for. So this is a good starting point when you're looking at writing to see what kinds of things need to be revised. A second strategy, and we've talked about this a lot, is looking at your verbs. So from wherever you left off, now look at your sentence and just start listing the verbs that you used. Went, had, ran, borrowed. And as you start listing these verbs, you can start to evaluate for yourself. Is that a really good descriptive verb? Is it vivid? So I might get a thesaurus out and look at what's a better way of saying something. Lifted. And I'm going to use lifted because we talked about this yesterday in the story that we were reading. We heard the word hoisted. And hoisted is a good, vivid verb, but it does have a special meaning. When we talk about hoisting something, it's something that's very, very heavy. So if I was talking about lifting my phone, I really wouldn't want to substitute the word hoisted my phone because that really doesn't fit there. There's a little bit of a meaning change to it, even though it basically means the same thing. So just blindly copying words out of the thesaurus to substitute doesn't always work. You might have to reword your sentence a little bit. But this is a good start to start examining You know, what kinds of verbs are you using, and if there's any place to change them. So on your blog, on your draft of blog 7 and 8, with a blue pen, you need to go through and identify some verbs in blue, and then change them. What are you going to revise them to be? What better verbs can you come up with than what you have? Because your goal is always to try and show your reader what you're thinking. The next strategy, using purple, we're going to go through and identify some nouns. And so, crusade, sword, village. Okay, and you're just going to list a bunch of nouns that you used in your writing. Make sure these are not pronouns and these are not proper nouns, but just regular old everyday nouns. And then what you can do is see, are there ways to put some adjectives in front of these nouns to make them more descriptive. So the noble crusade, the jewel encrusted sword. And again, some of this is going to depend on the context of your sentence, obviously. I'm just kind of making these up as I go. The impoverished village. And so then you can take your purple highlighter or gel pen or whatever it is that you're using and go back into your draft for blog 7 and 8 and add some of these changes so that when you go to type them on the computer, you have some additions to make that are going to make your writing and ultimately your grade improve. Strategy number 3 we talked about last week. I want you to get out a green pen or crayon or colored pencil or gel pen and cross out anywhere that you use the words there is, there are, there was, there were, there will be, and think about what it is that that sentence is really about, because it's not about there. If you're saying there are many knights attacking our village, then don't start your sentence with there. Start your sentence with the many knights and describe them and what they're doing. Okay, so right now you should get out a green pen, go through your paper, and look for anywhere that you used there is or there are. Strategy number 5, we talked about you're writing in first person point of view, so you should not be using words like you or your. The only exception to this might be if you are writing dialogue and you're speaking directly to somebody. But for the most part, you should not be using you or your. So if you did see that, take orange and cross out anywhere that you have you or your and work on rephrasing those sentences so that they have a little bit more description to them. Fragments and run-ons. Taking black, and if you don't have black, just use your pencil or an ink pen and cross off any sentences that begin with but, or, so, or and. These are conjunctions. Their intention is to combine two sentences or two ideas together. So you cannot start a sentence with them. If you do, you've basically written a fragment, and it'll be wrong. You cannot start a sentence with with one of those conjunctions. And I'm seeing this a lot in your journals, and I'm going to start taking points off for this because we've talked about it. Strategy 6, we talked about this as we looked at your last writing on demand assignment, the unconventional uses essay. Getting rid of non-specific words like things or stuff or people or something, and these all work together: something, anything, nothing, everything, someone, everyone, someone, no one. So getting rid of these, if you're going to say they raided our village and took all of our things, well, give some examples. What kinds of things would they have raided for in the Middle Ages? Give 3 examples and describe them. Your ultimate goal here is to help your reader visualize what it is that you're writing about. And then the last strategy is just basic editing. You know, we've talked about apostrophes for contractions and possessives. Did you use the correct use of a if it's a consonant word, or an with a vowel? Do you have correct punctuation and capitalization? So a lot of the mistakes that I'm seeing in your writing are things that you know. They're just things that you need to take a few minutes to go back and read and revise for. So these are some strategies we're going to continue to keep revisiting with every writing assignment, with every journal, with every blog they're doing. These are strategies that they can keep practicing to improve their writing. A first draft of writing is never going to be what they should turn in for a final copy. So after you have watched this, you need to go back to your blog posts, make the changes, and you need to show me this paper and the changes that you've made in your revision of your blogs.